Today, U.S. officials say the strikes in Iran, which were carried out without congressional approval and without notifying top Democratic lawmakers, were intended to prevent Iran from developing a nuclear weapon. The United States' decision to intervene came a little over a week after Israel launched a series of strikes on Iran. U.S. officials say the American strikes devastated Iran's nuclear program, but independent experts analyzing satellite imagery say it is far from destroyed. Iran's Revolutionary Guards released a video overnight saying the U.S. will face consequences and ending with a message saying the U.S. can start this war, but we'll be the ones who end it. Joining us now is U.S. Representative Randy Weber, who covers Friendswood and Galveston. Earlier, you heard from Congresswoman Lizzie Fletcher this morning on Houston Matters with a Democrats' response. Now, Representative Weber with the Republican response to this weekend's actions. Welcome to Hello Houston, Representative Weber.
Thank you, Celeste. I appreciate that.
Thank you. And if you have any questions for Representative Weber, now is the time to join the conversation at 713-440-8870.
Representative, as we are doing this right now, it's just coming to our attention that it seems as though Iran has had a counterstrike going on right now. What can you tell us about it? What do you know? What's happening?
6 missiles is what I saw. I just got off the plane just a while ago back in D.C. And here's some background that y'all would not know about me. We go on congressional delegations. We go overseas and we look at our facilities, whether it's military, and we deal with other government agencies, and we deal with other legislators, and we talk about trade and energy and those kinds of things. Since my 14th district has so many 7 ports more than anybody else, we talk about trade and we talk about energy. But in that particular time, I was over in Qatar, and we have an Air Force base over there, and they gave us classified briefing. And so we went through classified briefing. I'm not going to divulge anything, reveal anything that's in the classified briefing, but we got through, came out, and I asked the colonel, I said, look, we so much appreciate you guys. Y'all are right across the Hormuz Straits from Iran. Iran's had all this saber rattling going for a long time. And as you know, we've been paying attention a long time. And I said, if they were to launch missiles at you, Colonel, how much time would y'all have to react and to do something? And here's what he said, y'all. He said 4 minutes.
Wow.
That was earth-shaking for me. Yeah. Now, if Iran only launched, thank God, 6 missiles this time, then hopefully they could deal with those pretty perfunctorily and get those gone. But that's the kind of neighborhood, if you will, that they live in.
With those 6 missiles coming at us, does this change the level of what's going on between us and Iran right now?
I think what has to happen is, as you know, Iran is the world's #1 exporter of terrorism. End of story, period. Mm-hmm. And so if they continue to do these kinds of things, of course, I'm not the president. He has exercised his authority, as you know the background. They had 60 days worth of talks. And of course, you know that when Iran kept, twiddling their thumbs, so to speak, the 61st day, Israel opened up on them. You all know that Iran has basically said, even when I came into Congress in 2013, I think the Ayatollah Khomeini had said that Israel is a one-bomb nation. In other words, one nuclear bomb could destroy the whole nation of Israel. When somebody tells you they intend to kill you, and especially when they're the #1 exporter of terror, you need to sit up and take notice, take defensive measures, not only defensive measures, but you also need to be ready to retaliate and take that threat out. Especially remember that Iran has labeled the United States the great Satan and Israel the little Satan. Mm-hmm. And they are absolutely intent on killing us. That's not a good place for us to be.
Representative Weber, but what can you tell us about the 6 missiles that were launched? What were they targeting, and what are you being told? What type of intelligence do we have?
Well, I can't tell. I just got off the plane and drove right to the office and got my computer set up. So I just saw the flash come across. Although when you're talking about missiles, flash might be the best word.
Right,
but
right.
I just saw that notification come across the screen.
From what I'm seeing, it's not just Qatar, but Bahrain and Kuwait also attacked here. To Ernie's point, to follow up there, where do we go from here? How much are we in a war? How do you define what we're in, and where do we go from that point?
Well, again, you go back to it's in some fashion, and in fact, in a large fashion, it depends on what Iran is going to do. They're not playing nice in the neighborhood. There's a lot of pressure on them from around the world to do the right thing. If they keep fighting that and keep exporting terrorism, you know this probably. Some of the latest figures we've seen over the years is I think it's 646 servicemen and women that Iran has killed. Of course, they have their proxies, whether it's Hezbollah, whether it's Hamas, whether it's the Houthis. So there's a whole lot involved with this, not just the country of Iran. Of course, Yemen, the Houthis, they're threatening. Iran is. I don't know if y'all heard this. I was coming in on the plane. And I was, trying to keep up with X. They were threatening to shut down the Hormuz Strait. And so we'll see what they do. And if they keep acting so aggressively in so many ways towards so many free nations, people, who love independence and who love governments that are set up for freedom, if they keep wanting to kill those people, kill those governments, kill those nations, if you will, I think Iran's going to rue the day that they went against President Trump.
Now, Representative Weber, I understand what's happening in Iran, but does this action go against what President Trump promised? Does this go against his America First approach?
Well, I know what you're talking about, Celeste. Thank you. Remember, he said protracted war. He did not want to get us into like in Afghanistan, for example, 20-something years. He didn't want it to get us in a protracted war. I think with Iran, of course, the Afghanis, they didn't have nuclear weapons and they didn't have a lot of rhetoric out there. They wanted to kill, all the Jewish people in Israel, knock out the whole country. So I think it's a little bit of a different level. And I think the president has got good advice from his advisors. I know there's been I heard y'all earlier, I don't remember if it was Frank or who it was, saying that there was some independent folks saying that it didn't look like that much damage was done with the Moabs, the bunk busters, if you will. And so I think you're going to see President Trump take a very reasoned, thoughtful approach as to how they respond, and then, if need be, how we respond to them.
We are speaking with U.S. Representative Randy Weber right now. If you have questions, thoughts on this topic and want to share, 713-440-8870. Representative, listening to what you're saying from the news that's coming in, 6 missile strikes here earlier today, if I understood correctly, the attack on Israel was singular missiles shot at different points to kind of rattle the nation of Israel. What I'm wondering is, are we seeing a depleting of Iranian war apparatus? Are they low on missiles? That's why we're seeing limited numbers coming out. Are they depleted at this point since the barrage has been going on?
Ernie, is that you? I'm having trouble seeing your picture.
Yeah, it's me. It's Ernie.
All right, good. No, good. Thank you for that. Look, here's what a lot of people don't know about the way the Israelis work, because Iran has been trying to take them out for a long time. Hezbollah was on the north border, literally about half a mile from the north border. Of course, Hamas had tunnels built underground from Egypt into the West Bank for a long time. The Israelis go so far out of their way to avoid civilian casualties, they have what's called a knock-knock bomb. And what that means, there's 2 ways they do this. They will drop a knock-knock bomb on the top of a building that just goes along, boom, doesn't explode or anything. It just makes a big thud. Something got hit. They knew something got hit. And then they also drop leaflets that say, because what the terrorists were doing, they were holding up in hospitals. Everything above ground looked like, it was doctors, nurses, patients, and everything. And they kind of dared the Israelis to hit that hospital. The Iranians have no qualms about bombing hospitals and houses and neighborhoods in Israel. You know about the Iron Dome. You know that they have sent literally anywhere from 20 to 30 missiles a day, sometimes to 100 in a week or more. And so Israel is very intent on no civilian casualties. Iranians, not so much. Back to your second part of the question, is there inventory of armaments reducing? You know what I mean? Probably. They sent a lot of drones out. As you know, what was it, 300 drones against Israel, 6 or 7 months ago? And
But
so
some
I
of the
have to
talk
guess
then was that those drones were pretty much somewhat outdated too, that their military advancement might not be fully there.
right. Well, and that's a great point. You're making a great point, really. On one For one reason, that is, if they can't keep up with Israel, if the nations they're threatening, if they don't have the firepower, if they don't have the ammunition, if they don't have the capability, then you would think they would back off a little bit. So it's kind of puzzling. And I know that President Trump, I think his group called a meeting this afternoon. In fact, I think it was at 1 o'clock. They got to be watching this with a great degree of interest because it looks like Iran has been set back on their heels quite a bit, just my estimation.
You're listening to Hello Houston. We are speaking with U.S. Representative Randy Weber. You can join the conversation at 713-440-8870. We did have an off-air comment from a caller. Liz from Southwest says, it seems Israel keeps getting entangled with a lot of its neighbors. Is it possible an alliance with Israel could be a liability for the U.S.?
No.
It's a good answer.
Okay, there we go. And again, you can join the conversation at 713-440-8870.
Another question that keeps coming up is regime change, whether or not that's what we want. We had a caller earlier today saying that the only way that things can get in order over there is with a regime change. I have had the privilege of being in the presence of the Crown Prince, the Shah of Iran's son, who is here in the U.S., who has been looking for that to happen too. Is that the direction that this has to go for this to all settle down, or is there a way to work with the regime that's currently in power in Iran to settle the situation, from your point of view?
Well, that's loaded. That's a whole bunch of information to try to discuss in that part. Whether the Crown Prince will be the one remains to be seen. There have been quite a number of Iranians here in Washington, D.C. As y'all probably know, Miriam Rajavi, who is a lady from Iran, has been leading the resistance, if you will. They've had meetings in Paris. I've actually been to several of them, not in Paris, but here in the Rayburn building in the House side. Will there be enough Iranian citizens to rise up? Yeah, regime change, absolutely. The Shah, Ayatollah Khomeini has got to go. I know he's 86 years old. I mean, gosh, how much longer can he last? We'll see. But he needs to go, and maybe this is a good analogy or maybe not, just like Hitler had to go. Boy, they should have got rid of Hitler a long time ago. And here's a guy, y'all know this, women have little, if any, rights over in Iran. Man, they're treated like a chattel or cattle or, property. And so I think that it's going to have to be a regime change.
Do you have any concern about sleeper cells coming alive here in America? There's been that threat.
Every day.
Yeah.
Every day. And I'll tell you what I'm most, was that you, Frank?
Yes, sir.
I'll tell you what I'm most concerned about is you've seen this in the last several years. Haven't seen it maybe in the last year. These radicalized Islamists that have gotten radicalized and they drive a car or a truck onto a sidewalk and killed 10, 20 people. I'm very concerned about that.
Mm-hmm. I guess one of the questions that people are wondering about back and forth was the okay for the president to go in and do this strike. And as a sitting member, what are your thoughts and feelings on how he handled this? And can you get congressional approval when things need to be kept so close to the vest?
Well, the problem with that is congressional approval takes a long time. And our friends across, I don't know if you saw Hakeem Jeffries, post about him, said he broke the law. I'm not a constitutional scholar. I've read it several times. I know a little bit about the Constitution. The president, commander-in-chief, has that term for a reason. He has to, or she, and going forward, no matter, I don't want to, whichever we have in the White House at the time, has to be able to make a decision. Did I mention that the 6 missiles coming over to Qatar, they had about 4 minutes to respond?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the commander-in-chief has to be able to make decisions like that right now. I know maybe when I forget what the law is called, was written, that back in those days, we didn't have the kind of technology. We didn't have the internet. We didn't have a lot of the stuff maybe that we've got now. And when you see someone like Iran, as I said earlier, who vows to kill you and wipe you off the face of the earth, and then is on the edge of getting the most deadly weapon known to mankind, I think the president needs to be able to act quickly.
Sir, did you find out about this when we all did? Late Saturday night. Did the members of Congress get any indication that this attack was going to happen, or did you just find out on the news like we did?
Yeah, I didn't, Frank, find out. We didn't get an advance notice. Now, I would have to imagine that there's some committees, the armed services committees, probably got a briefing before the attack happened. But of course, then we saw the news everywhere.
Yeah. We have a call. Lewis from the medical center has been holding to ask you something. Lewis, are you there?
Lewis, you on the line?
Yes.
Okay, what's your question for the congressman?
Yes, thank you for putting me on. So, Representative Webb, my question is, why does Congress not do anything? Because the act of power of war, to declare war, is in Congress, in the Constitution. Why is Congress not getting that power? That's my question.
Okay, I think it's been asked and answered, but you want to give him a brief answer there, sir?
I'm glad you're listening, Lewis. There is the War Powers Act, is what it's called. I finally got it pulled back up in my little tiny pea brain. It was the one I was referring to, but I go back again to what I said earlier. The president has to be able to make split-second decisions. And when you're talking about 435 members of Congress trying to get them all in the same room to vote for something literally could take a day or two. And we don't have that kind of time, especially when you've got madmen like Ayatollah Khomeini and the Iranians who have vowed to kill everybody, have been working day and night overtime to get, the nuclear bomb. And he has literally said, I said this earlier, Lewis, I don't know if you were listening, that Israel is a one-bomb nation. There's about 9 million people in Israel, and it's the most democratic country you're going to see. They've got all kinds of people. They got Muslims, they have Jewish people, they have all kinds of different people that are in their Knesset, their governing body. And so when somebody says they want to take out Israel with one bomb, all 9 million people, believe them. You've got to be able to make quick decisions.
Representative, if I'm not mistaken, the War Powers Resolution does not forbid a strike, just continued attacks past the 60-day limit. To continue military operations beyond the 60-day limit, the president needs congressional approval, such as a declaration of war or a special authorized use of military force.
Representative.
Well, thank you for that, Ernie. I sure appreciate that, because I was trying to remember, was that 90? What year was that passed?
Now you're going beyond my knowledge base. You got me that far.
Representative.
It's above your pay grade. Yes, ma'am.
Representative Weber, if it turns out that the uranium was removed from the facilities, will we be performing additional attacks?
If it turns out that the uranium was
removed from the facilities that we were trying to that we sent missiles to.
Do y'all remember the JCPOA under President Obama?
No.
The Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, where we talked about about the nuclear stuff, and that they were supposed to let the IAEA, International Atomic Energy Agency, come in. One of the things I didn't like about it, Celeste, I'm going to get to your question. One of the things I didn't like about that was that they wouldn't let any Americans in. You had to give 48-hour notice to go and take a look at their facility. Well, come on, boys and girls. You don't have to be very smart to figure this out. They're going to hide as much as they can. Will we be able to get in there now and see if they've got uranium? Will they have been able to hide that uranium somewhere? You can bet, this is an old laugh-in phrase, you can bet your sweet bippy they're going to hide that uranium, and we would never know where it is.
Well, it makes you wonder if President Trump saying, I'll make a decision in 2 weeks, and then making a decision in 3 days was intentional.
I think it was, Frank. Actually, I appreciate what Ernie said earlier about the 61 days. You know that Israel attacked on the 61st day at the end of the 60 days because I think they figured out the Iranians were playing. They were playing chess. They were calling our bluff, if you will. And President Trump, as you know, he's a horse trader. He's a deal maker. He's used to arguing these kind of high-level deals. And if he said 2 weeks all the time thinking that, by golly, I'm not sure I want to give him 2 weeks. If they don't act within a day or two after the deadline expires, shame on them.
U.S. Representative Randy Weber, thank you for joining us today on Hello Houston. We hope to have you back as there's more developments.